Hey, this is Scott Hambrick at scotthambrick.com. I'm in my truck this morning, driving to town to get some supplies. So the quality is not studio quality, but it's this or nothing. So here we go. A young friend of mine has not been having a great deal of success in the dating market, asked me for any advice I could give him. And I don't really have much good advice, I don't think. When I was the dating age person, it was 30 years ago, 25 to 30 years ago, and it was pre-cell phone and pre-social media and pre-free ubiquitous porn, and it was a lot different. It was a lot easier. It was a lot better. You didn't have to compete with the world for the attention of a female. Nowadays, a young woman can post a cute selfie and get 1,000 likes, each of which gives her a little bit of dopamine and which gives her a feeling of well-being and belonging and attractiveness and is addictive. And that's really hard for a young man to compete with. You know, if she can post that picture or that TikTok and get all that affirmation and get that dopamine when he shows up at the doorstep, a gangly, awkward, 17-year-old with some carnations, not quite the same rush as all the 385 comments that are saying, "Oh my God, fire, slay queen," and then all the creeps in the DMs. From Saudi Arabia trying to get her to come to Dubai and let him poop on her. Anyway, it's degenerate now. It's more difficult than it was. But I do have as always, I do have something to say about this. One, don't be too earnest about it. Most of the young men that I talk to about dating now are millennials. Generation Z is moving into the dating world, and they seem to be doing a little better with it than the millennials. The millennials with their boomer parents are completely crippled emotionally and are frightened of strong emotional experiences, and as a result, they really struggle with this. But step one, don't be too earnest. It should be fun, and even if it's not fun, you need to change your mind about it and reframe it in your mind as fun, that dating and flirting is fun. Nobody likes rejection. Men are rejected constantly. The most attractive men in the world are rejected constantly. It's part of it. Don't take it personally, but have fun with it. Be playful and enjoy, for a couple of reasons. One, you need to enjoy it. I mean, you could be crushed by dating and how difficult it is now, and the rejection and so on. I mean, you could certainly do that, but we could make the choice to maybe we can make a choice to not be crushed by it and to view it as sport and fun. That would be good. That would be good for us, right? But also, if you're too earnest about it, if you're too serious about it, that's bad social proof. The female can tell. The female can tell about that. That is not an attitude that the female will find to be attractive, or maybe not. Let's not even talk about attraction. That's not something that she wants to spend time with. If you say, "Hey, let's go out for coffee for a first date," and you've got the affect of a mortician, and you're heavy because she can tell that you put so much importance on this. That doesn't look like a good 30 minutes in the middle of her day to her, and she's more likely to say no. And the pickup artist would say, clown game, that you have to be entertaining, you have to be fun, you have to bring a spirit of adventure to the thing, and they're not wrong about that. There's so much entertainment to be had in the phone, in the mobile phone. that you have to compete with that, unfortunately. So, one, try to bring a spirit of fun and levity to this, and for both you and the potential dating partner. I should say here that most of this is going to be directed towards the young man who's dating, but I do have some things to say about the young woman too. The young woman, and I have some daughters, that I talk to about these things, the young woman needs to realize, well, first of all, let me back up. Men and women are different. I believe that men and women are different. I believe they have different kinds of motivations and different things that they value, and as a result, their approaches to dating probably, they need to differ. That being said, the young women that are dating, you need to realize that the phone is created to hack your biology, frankly. The whole the fact that when you hit like something, it's a heart. The fact that the way that Instagram, for example, trickles those in your notifications, all of that is designed to maximize the amount of dopamine you get from using the app. And dopamine is one of the drugs that one of the hormones that is pleasurable and is released during dating and in intimate relationships, and they're eventually actually using your sexuality against you. Of course, the apps are using the sexuality against men too. Even though I'm a married guy in my late 40s, constantly getting recommended scantily clad gym skanks to follow in Instagram. They're constantly messing with us. So women know that social media stuff is messing with you, and if you're dating, get off of it as best you can. You'll have a better dating experience and probably have better luck finding a mate. Because if you aren't getting constant stimulation, pseudo relationship style stimulation from the app, you are more susceptible or more sensitive to that from a partner. So you can imagine that someone like Addison Rae, who gets enormous validation from social media, would require an over-the-top dating experience to frankly feel anything. Well, that's going to lead her to date certain kinds of men that maybe wouldn't be best for her to create relationships with, but she's so numbed out to attention that that's probably where she's going to go in her dating realm. So be careful of that social media, if not get off of it entirely. Another thing about dating, particularly for men, this isn't social media and men. Oh no, hang on here.
In this podcast, it's because
oh my Lord.
I hesitate. I'm not even sure how to describe it, but basically.
Okay. Social media puts the most popular accounts in front of us. Our feeds in social media are not organic. When Instagram first got started, for example, your feed would come through on your phone in chronological order. Well, they don't do that now. They show the same posts to you over and over again. They show posts to you that they think are more likely to increase your engagement, and those tend to be of more attractive people with high social proofs doing highly prized activities that society gives credence to. Right, so it's attractive people doing travel with bogus self-help, the stuff. And because I'm a strength coach and use social media, frankly, to promote that business, at least I do that at least some. I get recommended. I get accounts recommended to me for elite athletes, both male and female, and I could go, well, frankly, I could go my whole life and never see a female form like Brooke Wells, for example. So our social media skews our expectation of what people look like, frankly. There's a bell curve of attractiveness where, you know, the median, half of the tall part of the bell curve is at the median. You know, and we traditionally have talked about, oh man, you know, she's a 10, he's a 10, or whatever. Well, the median would be 5, right? So most people are 5s. Most people are average in appearance, and that's fine. In fact, 80% of people are going to be one standard deviation above the mean of average, right, or below. So 80% of people are going to be average looking or below, essentially. So I've talked to young men who frankly aren't very attractive, either physically or socially, and they reject women who I see as perfectly good matches for them, because I think that I think these young men have had their opinion of what an attractive female should be, or what the attractive female looks like, skewed by social media. I mean, this has always been a little bit a bit of a problem. You know, you can see, you know, in Time Life magazine, you know, it would have pictures of GIs barracks in World War II, and they had pinups of Betty Grable in there. Well, there aren't very many Betty Grables, but now you can see women far more attractive than Betty Grable, who have no notoriety or name recognition every day on social media, and that leads one to believe, at least subconsciously, that there are you know, 8s, 9s, 10s plentifully around you, and that's not the case. That's not the case at all. So know that, dude, you are probably not worthy of a female that's as attractive as you think you're worthy of. It's not that we're not worthy. A lot of people would probably bristle at that term, but there aren't those highly attractive females are rare, and the competition for those for relationships with them is extremely high, and most of us don't get to play in that league. So, you know, be kind to yourself and be kind to these women, and and look for, you know, healthy people who are solid mating prospects, and quit swinging for the damn fences. Always be escalating. That's one of number 3. I say always be escalating. Always be escalating commitment. I was never interested in dating someone for fun or companionship. I was dating because I was trying to look for somebody that I could marry. And I think that you should do the same. It's too resource intensive to date in both time, emotions, money, just our scarce attention to just do it willy-nilly. So as you're dating, only date people who you would marry. That doesn't mean you want to marry them immediately, but only date people who haven't disqualified themselves as a marriage partner. So as you're dating someone, as long as they continue to exhibit traits that you would find good in a marriage partner, continue dating them. But the instant that you see traits that are deal breakers for you, or character flaws that are intolerable to you, and we all have character flaws, but some are intolerable to us and others aren't. As soon as you see that, you need to move on. Don't overlook those things. So date with marriage in mind. In the instant someone disqualifies themselves from that, move on. Break up with them and move on. And because that needs to be the attitude, in my opinion, you need to be constantly escalating commitment. You know, you start with a phone conversation, you move on to the coffee date's dumb, by the way. It's not dumb, but it's so overused that it's a little bit tired. There's nothing wrong with asking a chick out for coffee or a guy for coffee, but maybe breakfast, right? But you do the phone conversation, you do the coffee date, you ask them, let's go catch breakfast, and then dinner, right? We're always escalating commitment. Each of these, even though we're just talking about a phone conversation, then coffee, then dinner, we're escalating commitment. Invite them to your parents' house for Thanksgiving, even if you hate the going to the parents' house for Thanksgiving. Always escalating commitment. ABC, always be closing. Well, always be escalating commitment. ABEC, maybe. And because of that, since we're always escalating commitment, I don't want to find people dating for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, then being engaged for a year and a half, 2 years. Always be escalating commitment, and as you cross those hurdles in commitment, you're moving towards getting engaged and then being married. And by the way, if you don't want to get married, get out of the way. Stop dating. Get out of there. You're just ruining society for everyone. Just go be a celibate. And then a lot of people would say, "Oh, but I don't want to be a celibate." Well, if you don't want to be married, and you're out there banging broads, you're part of the problem. Which brings me to my fourth one: no premarital sex. No premarital sex. I've been thinking about this one a lot. And we know all of the standard arguments for no premarital sex. So they're frankly kind of boring. It doesn't mean they're not right or not true, but they're kind of boring, and nobody really wants to hear about, some moral scold telling them not to have premarital sex, particularly in 2021. We're supposed to just all, get all the pleasure we can nowadays. But think about this. Again, this is mostly pointed at males, so because that's what I know, because I'm a male. But think about this. We all know a lot of women. How much influence on your decision making does just some average woman that is not in your family have on your decision making? So let's say you have a female friend at work who you enjoy visiting with in the break room, and you've been to a happy hour with a couple of times, or maybe even every Thursday night for a year. But you haven't kissed this woman, and you haven't had sex with her. How much influence on your decision making would she have on a day-to-day basis? Almost none. If you were looking at a new job in another city, which you shouldn't take, by the way, but if you were considering changing jobs or changing careers, that woman wouldn't have any influence over you hardly at all. Now, think about this. What if you were banging her all the time? How much influence would she have over that decision then? Maybe not complete and entire influence. Maybe you wouldn't do her bidding in that respect, but she would have enormously more influence over your decision making if she was a sex partner. Because in our minds, sex is tied up with long-term relationship. In your subconscious, that's what's going on. Now, you may not agree with that, but if you don't, I believe that you have the wrong picture of human nature. You know, somebody like Christopher Ryan would say that that's not true, that we're not actually monogamous, and he has all these stupid arguments that he makes, that he has, you know, manufactured sociological quote-unquote evidence around so that he could justify his hedonism. But he's wrong about human nature. If you have sex with a woman, your hormonal makeup, your subconscious, your soul, whatever, believes you're in a long-term relationship with that woman, whether you intellectually believe that or not. And as a result, she's going to have a bunch of sway over your decision-making. And that's probably proper, right? Well, how about this? What if you're dating a young woman and you're trying to make the best possible decision about whether to marry her? Do you actually want to give her sexual influence, and influence that sex bestows on her, over your decision to marry? I say no. I say no. When you start having sex with a woman, you subordinate yourself to her, rightly so, to some degree at least. Until you're married, that measure of subordination to her will and wish is not appropriate, and can and probably will hurt you. Here's another thought experiment. Is it easier to break up with a woman who you've dated 10 times and only held her hand, or is it easier to break up with a woman who you've dated 10 times and had sex with? I think it's clear that it's easier to break up with a woman that you have not had sexual congress with. Now, I'm sure there are people listening right now that are saying, oh, how do you know about compatibility, blah, 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 blah. That's another show, or I can talk about. Yeah. Because that idea is rubbish. That idea is utter rubbish. So while you want to be always escalating commitment, you don't want to be ratcheting up the sexual tension. That's going to happen anyway because we're animals. That's going to happen anyway, and you need to avoid the sex because it's going to skew the marriage decision. Well, full stop, period. Keep it light. Stupid motorcycles. Hear these pipes. Keep it light. Stay off the social media. And try to have fun with this. And guys, don't date chicks you wouldn't marry. You know, if you wouldn't marry a stripper, don't date one. Don't. You know, if she's got a kid and you don't want a stepkid, don't date her. You know, don't date people that you wouldn't marry. Don't even mess with it. And then refrain from sex until you get married. You know, we've got all those old moral arguments, and they're there for a reason. But those moral arguments and those prohibitions on premarital sex have been around so long and frankly worked so well that we've forgotten the reasons for those. There are all kinds of economic reasons. There are all kinds of reasons about family and the abandonment of children that are tied up in the prohibitions on premarital sex. But there's also the thing that almost no one wants to talk about. That's what I just stated. When you have sex with someone, you give them a weight in your mind that, unless you're married, they don't merit and don't deserve. And if you think you're a mega chad and that you won't be affected in that way, and you're hyper rational and you've read Ayn Rand and that won't affect you, you're wrong and you misunderstand human nature. I've told young people that I know that when we're dating, you get to know people, intimacy escalates, right? You hold hands, and then you hug, and there's a peck on the cheek, and then there's a kiss, and all of these things, and it's all moving towards sex eventually. Sorry. And as that starts getting closer, that's your sign that you probably need to be getting engaged. I know that nobody thinks this way, and people think that that's an outrageous claim that I'm making, but that's the way it had always been until, I don't know, 1935, certainly by 1965. So when that starts happening, that's your sign that you need to be moving things along, either towards marriage or towards a breakup. Breakups are good. If you do dating properly, a breakup is good, because that means that he or she broke up with you because they didn't want to be with you, and that's clearly not who you want to be married to. So, and then if you break up, well, you're doing it for your own reasons, which are rational and are to move your own goals forward. Breakups aren't bad. Not to say that they don't hurt and you won't be upset, might not that you won't shed a tear. Probably do all of those things, but ultimately they're good. I've said this on the Barbell Logic podcast. I don't know if it's still out there. I don't know if you can still hear it, but I believe that in the modern world, where we don't really live in our home communities very long, or may not even have a home community, and end up dating people we frankly don't really know. I highly recommend getting a private investigator and investigating that person as you get closer to marriage. A lot of people think this is outrageous as well. Tough shit. I think the evidence supports my advice there. You know, I got married to a woman that I had known since we were about 6 years old. There weren't any surprises there. I've known her since before she could get a credit card or get a student loan. So, you know, there was no surprise debts there. There were no surprise children. There was no surprise ex-husband. There was no surprise drinking problem. I knew her whole family. You understand what I'm saying? I'd known her for a very, very long time, and as a result, I knew what I was getting. But imagine if you're dating, you know, if you're from Topeka, Kansas, and you move to Chicago, and you're dating a young woman who you met in Chicago. Or here, let's not talk about it that way. Let's talk about men. You're a young woman from Topeka, you moved to Chicago, you're dating a young man in Chicago that you met there. You don't know his family, you didn't go to school with him. You could easily be dealing with some dark triad dude with psychopathy, narcissism, so on, who has a child you don't know about, who has a gambling problem and has some debts you don't know about. You get married to that guy because you're in a fever, because you went ahead and had sex with the guy and got the intimacy out of order, and now you're clinging to him. You go ahead and move forward with the marriage. 18 months after you get married, his ex comes forward and says, "Here's little Johnny. I need child support," and a summons arrives at the door, and you get to see that he's been served for some debts to collect, etc. Happens all the time. One of my dear friends found out when he was in his early 30s that his dad had an entire other family and his mother didn't know about it. These are the kind of things that they actually happen. They happen far more frequently than most people would like to realize. And you know, and maybe you're not going to find out. Actually, you probably won't find this out, that there is a whole second secret family. But something that you are likely to find out is that they have debts that you weren't aware of. Maybe the degree or certification they claim they have is false. Maybe you find out that this girl that you're in love with and want to get married to has had 3 abortions and didn't tell you. You know, who knows? Who knows? But my point is, since don't live in communities anymore, you won't have any way of knowing these things if your partner is trying to deceive you, unless you get the detective. And it's not going to cost you a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's cheap. It's the cheapest, I don't know, $1,200 you'll ever spend. Hey, and don't be sneaky about it. Just look them right in the eye and say, hey, is there anything you need to tell me? Because this is getting pretty hot and heavy, and you've come to mean a great deal to me, and we've only known each other for 9, 10, 14 months, whatever it is, and I'm going to look into your background. I think, I want you to look into mine as well. Okay? Yeah, I think you should do that. I think you should do that. Knowing somebody for a year ain't much. I've got socks that I bought last century, and people are, meeting somebody at work and getting married to them. Everything could be a lie. Yeah. Practical advice about, how to meet people, how to actually do the mechanics of dating now. I don't have much advice for that. It's all changed so much with the advent of social media, dating apps, so on. But I do know something about internet marketing, and dating is marketing and sales, so, unfortunately. And so much of that has moved online with, these dating apps and social media and just texting, that I think that online dating shares some aspects with marketing. Marketing that we do at Online Great Books is more difficult every day because the internet is more crowded every day, and we're finding more and more that we're having to go old-timey to do the marketing. Actually speaking to people, sending things in the mail, old-timey. And I suspect that's probably, even though it's hard, even though we don't want to do it, maybe that's probably going to be your highest chances of success. Your highest chances of success will probably lie in that old-timey kind of dating stuff, face to face. It's just too easy to swipe right. It's just too easy. All the guys I know who I've talked to about Tinder who actually use it swipe right on every single girl, because they're just waiting for the girl to swipe right. They want to maximize the number of matches they get. That Tinder dating market is so skewed towards the female that the guys really don't get to use any choice in there. It's just so skewed and so crowded for the females. So just don't even play that game. Go into the meat world and figure it out. I don't know. There are just a few things I wanted to say to people about dating. We'll see. I'll get some pushback from a bunch of idiots on this, probably. I know I'm saying things that people don't normally say out loud, and stating views that you probably may not have heard before or didn't think existed any longer. So when you bristle up on hearing those, cool off for a minute and think about it. And I think that on any sort of honest reflection, you might start to come around to my way on this. So listen, keep it in your pants. Always be escalating commitment. Figure out who it is you're dating, even if you're using, not even if, perhaps by using a detective if you need to, a private investigator. And the instant you're dating someone and you find out that they're not really marriage material for you, move on. All right. Talk to you guys soon.